Learn how to set up an identity provider and configure basic authentication within your application flows. Navigate to the Identity Provider section to begin configuring a new authentication method. Initiate the creation of a new identity provider. Focus on the name field to specify a clear identifier for your new provider. Enter a descriptive name that reflects the identity provider's purpose, such as SAML Okta service. Open the drop-down menu to choose the type of identity provider you want to configure. Select the appropriate identity provider type, for example, SAML or OIDC, to match your authentication protocol. Access the identity provider metadata field to input necessary configuration details. Paste or upload the XML metadata that defines your identity provider's settings and endpoints. Locate the Allowed Audience field to specify which audiences can authenticate through this provider. Input the audience value that your identity provider will recognize, such as a specific flow or application identifier. Pick the designated area to add user attribute mappings for authentication. Map the user's email attribute by entering the corresponding field name. Select a Next Attribute Mapping area to continue defining user attributes. Map the user's first name attribute to ensure proper identification. Proceed to the following attribute mapping field to add more user details. Map the user's group membership attribute to manage access control. Continue to the next attribute mapping field for additional user information. Map the user's last name attribute to complete the basic profile setup. Save your identity provider configuration to apply the changes. Switch to the Flows section to integrate the identity provider with your application flows. Open the application portal flow where authentication will be applied. Access the Flows settings to modify authentication parameters. Select the name field within the flow to edit its properties. Open the Identity Provider selection menu within the flow settings. Choose the newly created identity provider, such as SAML Okta service, to link it to the flow. Confirm the selection to associate the identity provider with the flow. Access the allowed groups or user access settings within the flow. Add specific user groups or individuals who are permitted to authenticate through this flow. Enter the email address of a user to grant them access. Save all flow settings to finalize the. This guide walked you through setting up a new identity provider using SAML or OIDC, mapping user attributes and integrating it into your application flows. You also learned how to configure user access and save your authentication settings effectively.